Hello, I'm Horceror. I want to find out what makes every single killer tick. There's one big glaring issue with that though. I play the Nemesis, essentially only the Nemesis. I physically cannot get thousands of hours of experience on every single character. So, I'm going to be interviewing people that do have those thousands of hours. One for every single killer. Welcome to Stars of the Fog. Alright, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Stars of the Fog. Today's killer is one that excels in going fast, touching grass, and ingesting harmful chemicals for this speed. My guest here today is one of the most prolific Blight mains out there. You probably already know him by name, but regardless, in case you don't, I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. So, Lilith, who are you? What are you known for? And why the Blight?
Some great questions. Also, I really quickly want to touch on the second kind of intro point there. Blights do not touch grass. I haven't been outside in weeks. I'm Lilith. I've got 10,000 hours as of right now. Also 300,000 Blight Rush hits, P100 Blight. You know, the typical, I'm the Blight guy. As far as like why I love Blight, it came from like, I mean, during the release window, I mean, I've always loved horror. I've always loved zombies. And I saw the character, you know, with the hood down, everything. I was like, this guy's sick. Then I played him, and at the time on release, everyone kind of like they underestimated him. They said that he was bad. They said he couldn't do this and that. He was, you know, people said that you couldn't use the power inside tile, and I was like, that's wrong. And so I did like a 50 win streak. And at the time, there was only like 2 people really streaming Blight on Twitch, and so I was like, you know, this is obviously what I should be doing. And yeah, you know, like to me, Blight has such like a fascinatingly high skill ceiling when it comes to like the amount of stuff you can do with him. You know, camera manipulation and like flick timing, stuff like that. And to me, like having a character that you can just sit there and master like these tiny, minute details of was always really appealing. Plus, he's super fast and speed is fun. So yeah, that's me and my relationship to Blight, effectively.
Of course. So when did you decide to fully main the Blight? Did you play like a little bit of Survivor beforehand? And if so, like how long was that before you became a killer main?
So I've always kind of been a killer main, not to the extent that I am now. Nowadays, I mean, I play a couple games at the beginning of the stream, but that's kind of it. I've been playing the game since like late 2016, I think. And you know, I'd play kind of like a lot more variety, bit of doctor, bit of trapper, whatever was new, really. So when I first started streaming, actually, which was what like October 2020, I think, I used to play like a ton more Survivor on stream. And initially in the Blight's PTB, I kind of hated him. His collision was despicable, to say the least. He couldn't get through doorways. He couldn't really do anything. But on live release, something just clicked with me. Something clicked. I was just chasing people, and I think like what I realized is that this is a killer that like forces interaction. You know, you can't really hold W away from this character because you will die. And to me, like that, you know, the 50-50s and the tile play has always been what has interested me about playing this game. And so yeah, pretty early on, I'd say maybe like a week into like Blight's release is when I was like, yeah, this is like my guy, you know, and I started playing mostly killer.
And when do you feel like you really understood everything? Like, because, you know, everyone starts as like a little baby Blight, but when do you feel like you became like the master of Blight? When do you feel like you really got him? And about how long did it take? Hours, hits, whatever metric you want to measure it by?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I'm not sure if there's like a super simple answer, because like keep in mind, nowadays, you know, if you want to learn Blight, you can go online, you can type in how to play Blight, and there's going to be guides from me, guides from other people on how to do things, how to flick, how to, you know, whatever, right? The various techs and bump logic and game sense and stuff like that. At the beginning, there wasn't anything. You know, no one had any guides or tips on how to play him. And so, like, when I thought that I knew everything about the character, I would then find something else. You know, I'd start playing him and I was like, okay, I've got the flicks down. And then I'd kind of discover, you know, oh, I can do this at this tile. You know, then you'd figure out like camera manipulation, you know, like a shoulder bump, stuff like that. I would say within maybe like a year of playing the character, I had most everything down. That was about when like the hug tech was around. And I feel like, you know, the moonrushing, the hug teching, I feel like at that point I was pretty confident in like explaining pretty much everything. But with a character like Blight, there is no skill ceiling. There's always going to be more to learn.
And that's kind of the general appeal of him, you would say. Would you say that like the skill ceiling itself is what you enjoy the absolute most about them, or is it something else in particular?
Yeah, it's absolutely the skill ceiling. And like to me, like I mentioned before, it's the tiny little details. Like for me, one of the most appealing, I'm probably the only person on the planet that really cares this much about it, but to me, like the camera controller Blight is so unbelievably unique, because if you look at like Billy or Oni or any other character, you know, when you turn, you are turning your entire body, right? Like
Right.
That's how most games work. Whereas Blight has this delay, which is called the look angle. And so it means that I can travel in one direction, and then turn my head in another direction, which also applies like a secondary hitbox for bumping into things. So I can like manipulate both styles of hitbox at the same time and also use that like turn update to get around corners. Like that to me was so fascinating. Because when I figured that out, it opened up an entire new like dimension of like playing the character and learning different ways of playing tiles that may not have been possible before.
So just like look angling and learning things and just the constantly pushing yourself to improve. You're like, okay, wow, I'm rocking with this guy. I really enjoy everything about him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things that like I don't feel like you could ever truly master this character. And it's something people ask me all the time, like, how do I not get bored of playing him? And it's these aspects. You know, I go into a match and like Blight more than any other killer as well. I mean, DBD has a lot of RNG influence, you know, like tile spawns and stuff like that.
Yep.
But like everything about a map is going to change how you play Blight. Like if I play on Wrecker's Yard, and there happens to be a tree there this time next to Shack, and then next time there's not. Next time there's a barrel, but it's further away. Like that's going to influence my decision on how I play a tile. Maybe I might go counterclockwise next time because there's an object there, or maybe there's nothing there. On you're playing like Shelter Woods or Rotten Fields, and there's just nothing at Shack, and now you have to use the collision of Shack itself to get around. And that combined with like the survivor's decisions and all these different aspects just means that like every single time I play a match, it will never play out the same.
Yeah, because there's so many different variables in the match that do change because of the RNG aspect, like you just brought up.
Exactly.
And what would you say your favorite map is, just while we're talking about them?
Oh, okay. This is going to be a really controversial one. And if there's any
Yard.
I love Wrecker's Yard. Wrecker's Yard is sick. I guarantee there are going to be several comments on this video.
Okay, looking forward to it.
I think that unironically, Larry's might be my favorite map in the entire game.
I think there's going to be a comment on this choice in the video right here from me. What are you talking about? All right,
yeah,
my mind's open. You know, sell me on it. Sell me on it.
Okay, so like again, my like appeal in Blight, the reason why I love him is that like difficulty, right? Putting yourself in these like in a loop that you look at and you're like, how do I play this? Right? Is there any way I could possibly get a hit in this area? And then trying things and experimenting, trying to like manipulate the direction the survivor's going, for example. Larry's is like a really unforgiving map, but the collision there is super consistent. You know, like there's a lot of doorways, there's a lot of windows, and there's a lot of like various RNG that completely affecting. And I guess similar to playing Nurse, you know, when you are playing as really any killer, but especially someone like Blight or Nurse, when a survivor loses LOS, you kind of have to go back into your game sense of thinking of like remembering the map, remembering the collision. Was there a doorway here? Is there a window they're running towards? How is the survivor acting? And so you've got to be like really particular on the direction you're taking the chase, you know, on whether you decide to try and cut them off by going a different way, remembering, okay, there is a double doorway here, there's a window, I can try and cut them off before they get there because that's probably where they're going. I don't know, it's always a challenge, but like it's always a really fulfilling one to play well on, to me.
So it's less that the map is good and more that it's your favorite because it makes you use your brain, and when you hit something you feel better about it than you would if it was just like hit wall, hit them directly because they ran in a straight line.
Exactly.
Okay. See, now that it's explained, I get it, but rather than just saying like, oh, Larry's my favorite map, absolutely not. What's wrong with you? But I get it now.
Yeah.
So what is your least favorite map though?
Oh, probably for like the same reason but in reverse is Nostromo. That or Turbo Landing. I can't really stand either of them for slightly different reasons. I think Nostromo just has like really inconsistent collision. Most of it doesn't function properly. It sucks, right? The layout of the tiles is just kind of dull to me. There's just stuff everywhere for no reason. And it's a really big map, but it doesn't feel big when you're playing it. You know, it takes a while to find people. That is pretty dark. There's a lot of little corners you can hide in,
and there's just like not really a lot of loops, really. It's just kind of a bunch of random shit.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but when I get down there, it doesn't feel like when I play against a good survivor and we're playing on even like Cowshed or something or Cold Tower, I can appreciate like a survivor making some great decisions and countering me in a chase, you know, because that pushes me to have to play better to down them.
Absolutely.
In a map like Nostromo, it's like, well, like they just didn't have anything, right? They hid behind the one box, the one random debris feature they had, and either they won the 50-50 or they didn't. And that to me just isn't rewarding on either side.
Yeah, you're not a big fan of gambling and coin flipping is the thing that I'm hearing, really?
Yeah, I mean, so sometimes it's fun. You know, sometimes I'll just like randomly do something and just swing and hope for the best, you know, get a swing, some pokos or something.
You know, for
but
fun,
like,
yeah.
The ones that I enjoy the most are the ones where you have to be super meticulous about the exact location of the bumping, you know, like, and not just with my positioning, but with repositioning survivors, where let's say I'm playing a tile and there's a pallet there and I'm like, okay, if I rush forwards, which is the easier way to do it, they are probably going to make to the pallet. Therefore, I'm going to either force into a break or I'm going to miss, and then they get like fatigue time to just run away, or I can try and push them the other way, do something more complicated and try and get the hit, that way. Like that kind of like very meticulous bumping where you plan ahead is the part that I have fun with.
And Nostromo doesn't really have that. So what about the Toba one that you brought up as well? Is that like the same reason? Because I always thought the collision was pretty okay. I mean, I played Nemesis, so what's Toba's deal?
So Toba is a couple things. You are correct in that the collision is better on Toba, except for the edge map. For some godforsaken reason, the entire wall of that map has no hitbox whatsoever, and
so
it's dumb.
You just slide along it?
You just slide along the entire thing. It's so
okay,
funny.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which, like I was saying with maps like Shelter Woods, like I kind of like those challenging maps where there is like very little objects to work with. But the problem with that map is Shack, for example. There's nothing that spawns at either doorway, and so if I run through the doorway trying to catch someone, I am inevitably going to hit a wall and then not hit the wall and then slide, and then they just get like a free chase, and it's like it just kind of feels bad.
Yeah.
The other big thing with Toba for me is that it is such like an overwhelming everything all the time. Like
I hear that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so bright, and like to me more than anything, it's the sound effects. Like the ambient like plant alien thing going on is just, it's so loud, and like as a combination, it's just there's too much stuff, there's so many bushes to hide in. It's just, yeah, in my opinion, not the most well designed map.
I like it how it plays, but it definitely does lean into that like accessibility nightmare type deal, and I know a lot of people that feel the same way.
Absolutely.
So those are the maps you dislike the most, for reasons given. But as far as disliking the Blight itself, is there any part of him, like a tech or a visual or a sound or like anything at all that you're like, I really specifically don't like this part of my character? Because you like him obviously, but is there anything you don't like?
I adore the Blight, honestly. Like from pretty much every aspect, I think that he is the perfect character for me. I controversially think he's a really well designed character for counterplay as well. Outside of a couple things, the brutal strength, just forcing power down, double rush thing is kind of boring.
Yeah, of course.
But like as far as problems, not really. I mean, like I was saying, the camera stuff I think is absolutely perfect. I think that the fatigue, the rush duration, the token regeneration, I think all of that is really well designed. The one very, very minor thing, very tiny nitpick here. So most killers have like a different animation for hitting an object. If you're M1 swinging, right, you just swing and you hit nothing, and then you swing and you hit an object. You have like a pinging like animation, right?
Yep.
Blight has that for M1, but M2 they just forgot to add one, and so what they did instead is they just gave you the same ejection animation but without the syringe. And like there's clearly an attempt at showing you that you hit an object, but they just didn't make one, and that animation always bugs me.
So the bug where your syringe is missing bugs you?
Yeah, which the most annoying part is that it's an intended feature. Like that was just their attempt at not making animation and just replacing it with another one. Like you can tell when you hit something because there is no syringe. It's just that there are so many other animations you could have done.
Yeah, obviously I don't play a lot of the Blight, so I couldn't like make up an idea, but you could do something more than just like the same animation without a syringe, because it feels a little silly looking from my point of view.
He just like his hand is gripping an invisible syringe and injecting it. Like it doesn't make any sense.
He just he got into mimery between that wall hit and injecting it. So you said you adored the Blight. You like everything about except this like one petite little thing. But I want to ask you specifically, how do you feel about his lore? Because you enjoy the playstyle, of course, but Dead by Daylight behavior, they do give characters backstories. What do you think about Talbot Grimes's backstory? Are you a fan? You a lore guy?
As a character?
Yeah.
I'm not like a huge, I mean, it's tricky. Like I always struggle with like reading a lot. I don't have the attention span for it. I adore the lore in the game for almost every character. And Blight, I think, is a bit of like a really unique exception because he actually existed as a character before he was a playable character, right? He interacted a lot with Vigo. He is the reason why we have a lot of the things that survivors have currently. And there's a lot of like really cool, like tiny features. Like for example, if you ever noticed that Blight's vault animation looks almost identical to a survivor's fast vault animation.
A little slower, but yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, and the reason being is because Talbot was a survivor in the realm before he was a killer. Yeah, crazy, right?
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, he was the one that was kind of like, so him. Vigo was the one that kind of invented the hatch. But the concept with Talbot is he was trying to find a way out of the realm. You know, he was always kind of fascinated by alchemy and ingredients and concoctions. And so he then came across this postular serum, from this flower that could feasibly give you like impossible strength and extra fatigue and the lack of fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
And so his idea was that he could escape the realm by using this serum. It was then because he experimented a lot on the killers, but he also experimented on this one rat this one time. The rat died and then came back to life and bit him, and that's kind of like where his addiction came from.
The blighted rat. Whoa, the add-on.
Yeah, dead rat, dead rodent add-on, extra speed.
Holy moly.
I know. So yeah, long story short, I have like a whole like headcanon of Blight being blind, which is kind of hinted at, but people always debate me on that one. Blight's lore is fantastic.
I kind of want to hear more about the blind blight thing. I'm just curious now.
So like very, very in short, I guess. So like Blight's default cosmetic, he has the hood going over the eyes, right? Which obviously isn't going to help for visibility, right? On top of that, a couple other points. So he has the add-on called the chip monocle, which references his deteriorating eyesight when he was not the blight, when he was still a human, which is obviously not, great. The one biggest like telltale sign to me is the character's power itself, right? Like if Blight could see the survivor, why is he bumping into anything? It doesn't make any sense, right, for him to bump and then find them. To me, the sign of someone bumping is probably because they can't see them and they are, they're sloppy with what they're doing and they're trying to find them. And to me, this is emphasized in the fact that, like, Blight's a really loud character. He twitches all the time until you bump. When you bump is the only time he is completely still. There's no twitching, there's no sound effects. He is completely static. And I think that's because he bumps, and then it's either like the entity giving him like some kind of general understanding of his environment to try and track down the survivor, or maybe like echolocation, he's trying to hear them, trying to hear the breathing, the footsteps. But there is no reason for a character that can see to bump into anything. And so like, lots and lots of reasons to why I think that he is blind.
I mean, I'm sold on it. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it sounds, I don't know how to word it well. It sounds good. It's a good theory. I like it. I like it a lot.
It works, right?
Yeah, it does work. So with our blighted rat and our chip monocle, add-ons, I am gonna hit you up with the add-on question. How do you feel about the Blight's add-ons? Do you think they're balanced, overtuned, undertuned? Are there any specifics you like running, and are there any specifics that you think need to get looked at for problematic reasons?
Such a good question. I would firstly love to say that I miss the Alchemist Ring dearly. It was fantastic. Although, like, honestly, the current add-ons, I think for the most part, are in a pretty good spot. I think that, like, this is going to sound controversial. I think making Blight speed add-ons somewhat base kit with a little bit of a nerf and then modifying some other add-ons would probably be a healthier way to make there be more variety in what Blights run. Because, I mean, if you play against the Blight, they've got green speed, at least, right? Every single Blight is running green speed, which makes sense because it makes, chasing easier.
Yeah.
And also, your speed is fun. You're going to catch people, going to do big flicks like that. That's the fun part of Blight.
Yep.
As far as, like, so Compound 33, which is the one, gives you some more turn rates, gives you a bit more distance. I think that's really well balanced. It's a bit lackluster for an iridescent, but it's fine. I think the iridescent Blight tag is a slightly more controversial one. And it's funny, really quick mention of that one. So originally, when they nerfed Blight tag, which the old one I'm convinced made him the best killer in the game without question.
It made the insta-down, right?
Yeah, so for about like a year or so, I was grinding like to get the world record fastest 4K, and the only reason we didn't get it is because of copies. Like, it was on average we're down an entire team in about 35 seconds, right? Like, no other killer can do that, and has ever or probably will ever be able to do that. When they first changed Eerie Tag, it was infinite rushes. And I think people panicked because the idea of like, oh my god, infinite rushing Blight is crazy, right? Until you realize that he gets a hit, one injury, and now he has a 20-second recharge, which is really bad. Like,
that's really long,
yeah, 20 seconds per injury. Like, that sucks. But of course, on paper, people panicked. They were like, oh my god, infinity rushes. And so the devs said, okay, let's just change it to less rushes. Let's give him 3. That should be what people are looking for. And at first, as is typical of the DVD community, people were like, yeah, less rushes, this is sick. And then they realized, actually, 3 rushes means 6 seconds cooldown, plus 10% speed, plus look angle, and it became his strongest add-on by a country mile, which is kind of funny. That one, combined with Soul Chemical, are also very problematic because you're running like 15% faster in your first rush, which means that you can zone them away from anything. It's kind of like, it lets you do the unfun play, like the unfun part of the counterplay, which is just like zoning and then killing.
Yeah.
As far as most of the other add-ons, I think are fine. I think Adrenaline Vial sucks. I hate it with a burning passion. That's the one that reduces your turn rate and it just feels bad. Plus 14-second recharge is dumb. And I think the only two that I'll mention real quick that I'm very, very sad that they changed is the Soul Chemical and the Summoning Stone. Soul Chemical is the one that used to, it was a really cool little like kind of doctorish add-on where if you were to rush towards Survivor and then they enter your terror radius, they'd be given a skill check, right? I thought that was really cool. It wasn't great, you know, but it was a unique build. It kind of let you make like an interesting playstyle.
Yeah.
And then Summoning Stone was like a mini blood favor, but if you hit them with a lethal rush, which also, you know, was a pretty cool thing to run, you know, running blood favor and then having that on top of it, so they cleanse it, they're happy, and then it's still blocked was always kind of fun. Now both the add-ons are pretty much useless. Like Summoning Stone is, there's no reason to ever run it because it's just an objectively worse outcring. But across the board, I would say that the add-ons are in a pretty good spot.
Takes with a grain of salt because I don't play a lot of Blight. You know, I P100 at him to P100 every Resident Evil killer and character. But my favorite add-on personally is the purple journal that makes you undetectable or rushing. I just think it's neat. I think it's fun.
I adore that. And I honestly think that Vigo's Journal is the most underrated add-on in the entirety of DBD, especially because you can really mess with people. Like just recently, I guess it depends on when you, the viewer, are watching this video. I uploaded like a jump scare Blight video recently, and it combines Vigo's Journal with things like Tinkerer on top of Distressing and Infectious, right? And so it means that like the entire game, as soon as I'm rushing, and we go to mid, which keep in mind, and Blight's radius was recently buffed to 40 meters, which with Distressing means 52 meters of radius.
That's the whole map.
So anytime, if I'm rushing, there's nothing, silence. But as soon as I stop rushing, radius. Right, like the entire map, and it's so fun because survivors never know what to expect. They goes from 0 to 100 instantly. It's such a cool add-on. It lets you do so many like unique playstyles and things. But again, the problem is that like, you know, that one in particular is interesting. I feel like the reason why people don't run it is not because people think it's weak. It's because the perception of it is that it doesn't do anything. Because from a killer's point of view, you don't ever feel your radius, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're running Monitor or something, you don't feel the difference, I guess, like directly with that.
It's like a passive value thing rather than like an active value thing, like Pop Goes the Weasel or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas like when you're running Eerie's Hag or, you know, Blighted Crow or something, like you can, that feedback is immediate, it's tangible. I'm rushing faster, therefore this is good.
Yeah. And while we're talking about running things, what perks do you run as well? And do you think there's any specific perks that Blight uses better than literally any other killer due to some unique interaction? And what is your Lilith Omen's favorite perk?
These questions are incredible. I love these.
Thank you.
I'm a bit of a weirdo, I guess. If people have never seen my Blight gameplay or my killer gameplay in general, I play the game in a very strange way. I haven't kicked a gen in a public match outside of subathon goals in about 4.5 years as any character. I also don't really run perks outside of particular builds or win streaks. And so for me personally, like my go-to build is normally just barbecue and lethal. There's just something cool about having like those two perks. I don't really feel like we need much more than that. Oftentimes I will just go perkless, you know, maybe run like some double speed or some, you know, comp 33, some alchering or something. As far as like ones that work better on Blight than any other killer in the game, the classics are going to be Infectious and Barbecue. I think are like the biggest staples besides Lethal on Blight, because, you know, you have characters like Ghoul now that can get to people very, very quickly. So I guess like maybe Lethal is like a little bit more debatable, but something I think that people underestimate on Blight is that like his map mobility is by far the best of any character in the game. Is he quicker from getting from point A to point B than compared to someone like Billy or Ghoul? No, like they can get there faster. But if you're looking at a map like Hawkins, for example, Billy can go in a straight line very well, but he cannot curve very well around like tight corners. Ghoul can kind of do it, but he also gets stuck on a lot of things, and he only has access to really 2 proper dashes. Blight's mobility, presuming that you have like the finesse of getting, you know, through tricky terrain like Larry's or RPD, for example, effectively unmatched. You know, he can go through one corridor, turn an angle, go through another corridor, go downstairs, turn another corridor, and then still do a flick on a survivor on a gen that was on the other side of the map. You know, like no other killer can really do this. And so things like Barbecue just allow you to like always keep this massive pressure the entire time. You know, you hook someone, there's a survivor, there's a very good chance that within 40 meters of distance, you can get to that survivor. Infectious is kind of the same, especially when it comes to like slugging. You can, you know, down someone, you can see a screen within, I guess, 40 meters default, and you know that within 5 rushes, even without speed, you can get to that survivor.
Yep.
And so probably, yeah, Lethal, Barbecue, and Infectious are like the kind of the go-to like wombo combo Blight perks, I would say.
All right. And while we're still talking about the perks, what about on the opposite side of things? What about about survivor perks? Is there any specific perk that you would say is like the secret, please don't run this against me because it's so overpowered against the Blight perk? What counters the Blight perk-wise?
This is going to sound kind of wild, and it does come with like a massive catch.
Of course.
The sprint burst, when used very, very well and very tactically, can be kind of challenging. If you run in a straight line, sprint burst will do nothing, as will Lithe, as will Overcome, as will anything. Blight is moving faster than you are, even with the speed increase. But if you are sprint bursting and you turn a quick corner and you turn another quick corner, me getting to you there is going to be kind of rough, actually. You know, if we're playing Larry's, for example, and you turn a doorway and then turn another doorway, like I've got a way harder time getting through to that than you do. And so sprint burst, when played very optimally, can actually be kind of tough. I think the problem with sprint burst, though, is a lot of people will sit there and be like, I have speed, I can make distance. And that distance in a straight line is going to result in a hit. You've got to know where to use it. Like if you're thinking like even like a filler tile on something like Azerov's, right? Like if you're playing one of those cars and you turn a corner behind a box, like I'm going to struggle to get there without like maybe 3 rushes. Plus, not to mention, if you're the kind of survivor that is like keeping an eye on the Blight, you know, counting how many rushes I've used. If I've got 1 rush remaining and you use sprint burst to turn a corner, I can't get to you now. And there are very few other perks in the game that kind of allow that to happen.
So definitely learn to use it, make sure you know what you're doing, but if you get good with sprint burst, you can counter a hit killer the Blight. That's what you said verbatim. I'm clickbaiting it now.
Yep. That is going to be in the thumbnail. Sprint burst is the strongest perk in the game.
Oh no, I already have a thumbnail. Really funny that you say strongest in the game, actually. How would you rate your killer personally in terms of strength? Not just like a, you know, everyone knows this is where they go on a tier list, but with your reason, your experience, your 10,000 hours, your Blight playing, how strong is the Blight?
I think this is probably going to come as a shock to nobody. I mean, Blight is obviously at the very, very top of the food chain, but yep. I think Blight is a lot closer to Nurse when played super optimally than people realize. I think there's a lot of finesse into playing him to that degree, and in many ways I think that he's actually better. I think that like the problem with a character like Nurse is that, you know, Nurse kind of counters everything. She doesn't play DBD killer. She has her own game.
Nurse, exactly.
Exactly, yeah. Whereas like Blight and Nurse have stuff in common when it comes to like, you know, when a survivor loses LOS, you've got to kind of like game sense and think like, where's the survivor? What have they got? What are they doing? But the one big advantage that Blight has that we kind of touched on with the mobility is that Nurse's mobility is not actually that good. When it comes to like a 2-story building, for example, she's incredible. I guess only matched by maybe someone like Dracula if there's a vault there. But like Blight, when it comes to like a straight line or like a flat map, you know, if you hold W as Trapper in a straight line, you will actually get there faster than Nurse does. And so like Blight's ability to pressure large areas of the map, large amounts of like, you know, survivors at the same time and, you know, past the gens is, in my opinion, significantly better than Nurse's. I think the difference is that like Nurse's ability to follow up and get that down is a lot harder to like to get away from. You know, the only time that you're going to get away from a Nurse is if she misblinks. If a Nurse never fails to blink on top of you, you will always die.
Yeah, so Blight has a lot more map mobility type deal, and Nurse, like, while lacking in said map mobility, her lethality is so high that that's why she's better, but only that.
Yeah, like her lethality is so far above any killer in the game, because if you're playing Ghoul or something, you get to like that one tile, you're thinking like, damn, what do I do here? There's not really much I can do. I can try and do this. I can try and like, if you're playing someone like Nemesis, right? There are going to be those tiles that you're thinking, I could probably try and, you know, the hitbox is just low enough that I can try for something, but the survivor's paying attention and they might crouch under it and you just about miss it. Like Nurse doesn't have any of those questions. She's thinking, if I blink correctly, if my muscle memory is good enough, they will die. There's no question about it.
This is true. Yeah.
And so, like, I think that Blight is a little bit more capable, because the other thing as well is that, like, there are a lot of people, even, like, intermediate Blights, that will see a certain tile and think, I've got to play M1 here. I don't know how to play this one. I can't personally think of a single tile in the game that I do not play M2 around. Some of them are significantly harder and more RNG reliant on, like, the RNG that you get, or the objects that spawn around it. But every single one of them is doable. They're just, some of them are very, very tricky.
As long as you have enough rushes, that's all that really matters.
Exactly.
So it's not just, we're not denying he's an S tier, of course, but he's also not just like, you could 4K every single lobby for the rest of your life for free if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, which
a
is
little
kind
bit of
like,
effort is required.
Yes, outside of, I guess, like the one like quick mention of this. I'm not sure if this is an upcoming question. I'm just going to ruin the flow of this.
I will go into that question. Go for it.
Awesome. So like the one, I guess, problem, and it's debatably a problem, in my opinion it is, because like when there's a character that is like a very, very good killer, that killer should also require a a fair amount of like physical mechanical input to play to that degree, I think.
So not early school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it shouldn't feel free to play that good. Or like old Freddy, if you remember, right? Like Freddy was like a really high rate killer because high kill rate killer because he was so easy to play. And to me, like the one problem that Blight has right now is that if you go into a game with Blight and then Eerie Tag, Soul Chemical, and Brutal Strength, all you've got to do to get a hit every single time is go to a tile, W because you're 115 anyway, force the pallet down, Brutal Strength, and then 2 rushes, right? 1 bump near to them, and then another bump to swing. Like you will never miss that because like once the pallet is gone, how many meters of distance does that person have on you and how much faster are you than they are? Like you are not going to be able to like sit there and avoid that hit unless the Blight makes a mistake. And at that point, it's the nurse problem. You know, if the Blight is never making a mistake, they should never be missing that hit. And to me, that takes away like the appeal in Blight, you know, doing like this complicated bump logic, all these kind of like weird ideas and mind games and things, because you've kind of boiled it down to just like to brutal strength, zone, keep the distance small, and guarantee the swing. I think in that way, the killer's skill ceiling is a lot lower and he's a lot more accessible to play in that kind of like guaranteed 4K way. So in my mind, ideally, you'd want to do something like what they've done with Ghoul, where a token is removed after breaking a pallet. At least the survivor has some kind of distance to make so they can get to something to loop.
So that's what you would change about the killer if you were to hypothetically be in the booth with behavior, be like, hey, we got to do something about this specific thing.
There's a few things that I'd change, yeah, but that would be like one of the big ones, is to take away that kind of like that 2 rush brutal strength like zoning playstyle, because that to me is what makes it boring. There's no mechanical counterplays to that.
Would you do a similar thing with what they did with Ghoul by taking away a token when they break a pallet? Do you think that would be fair for Blight as well?
Yes, although only specifically if you break it with a spacebar, I think, because if you are breaking a pallet with your rush, you are already recharging anyway. You know, you've got like a minimum, because he also can't break a pallet on his first rush, so you're looking at minimum 4-second distance, and the 4 things of you know, survival movement is far enough, I think.
Is there anything else in particular you want to say change-wise you would do, or like just the token thing, or because you did like just mention, so I figured I'd give you the stage on that one real quick.
Yeah, I mean, the copium one is that I think the hug tech would be fine. There's been a lot of discussion about him being made 4.4, and with a few tweaks, I honestly wouldn't mind it. Actually, I don't mind the idea of him being 4.4, presuming the lethal rush speed is still base kit 9.2. Possibly do something about making, you know, the add-ons a bit more varied by making like some Blight to Crow base kit or something. As long as you're able to like the main thing with me that I want to tackle is again that just brutal strength, 0 distance, zoning dead playstyle.
It's boring,
because you know, like to touch on what I said earlier, you know, to me, like DBD is most fun when there is some kind of challenge involved, when the survivor's playing well and they've got some opportunity. If there was a killer that you could hypothetically load in as, and all 4 survivors are in the dying state and you just win, like I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like that killer. To me, that'd be boring as fuck, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's got to be some kind of effort that I'm putting in to get that down, and like when the other thing as well, when you're playing survivor and you manage to like, you know, read what the Blight's doing, you narrowly avoid that flick and you get to the panel, get to the main building or something.
It feels
like
really
that,
good.
To me, it's one of the best feelings in the game, you know, because the Blight had to put some thought into where they were going to bump, you put some thought into what they were going to do and what you're going to do, and you managed to come out on top. Like that was that's rewarding, like tangible counterplay.
And when you're on the other end of the thing, when you were playing Survivor against a Blight, do you enjoy that type of gameplay for the same reason that you enjoy playing the Blight? Because you feel like through them, kind of you're playing the Blight as a survivor, and then you're reading their mind and encountering it. And that's, do you enjoy playing against Blight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this is going to come as no shock. I love playing against the Blight. Just because, again, it's counterplay to me. Like, it's the most fun form of counterplay. As long as the Blight is rushing and trying to do something interesting and not just, you know, again, brutal strengthening pallets down. If I'm put in a position where I can make a decision and try and counter it, even if I get stomped, you know, and I have the worst chances ever, like at least I had, like, I can think, oh, if I was to do this thing, that would have worked. I can learn that for next time. If I was to go this direction or hide behind this tree or count the rushes better, that to me is the fun form of counterplay. And so, yeah, I love going into the Blight.
Because of skill expression type deal.
Exactly, yeah. Like, but to me, like, the best design killer or any good killer design has to have skill expression on both sides.
Sorry.
I mean, I mean, to be, there is like quite a lot for Nemesis, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of interesting. Do you find that most people dislike or like going against Nemesis?
I'm gonna say dislike, but this is for a specific reason, because the whip drag, which is like his one thing that he does, the hitbox isn't visible for survivors. It's invisible, so like you don't see the blue line going. So it's like they don't have they can't react to it unless they know it's happening. So like that would be what I would change about the Nemesis aside from an add-on pass. But a lot of them don't like it because I actually was getting clips today, you know, from other channels, and a lot of people like think my hits are bullshit because they literally cannot see me do it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if hunters had an invisible hatchet. Like you saw me throw it, but you didn't see the hatchet. So what hit you?
Yeah, which is like it doesn't have that feedback of like, okay, that makes sense why I got hit. You know, it just kind of like it magically invisibly injures
Exactly,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, which is like I've always enjoyed playing as Nemesis. There are very few killers that I dislike playing against, really. But like, yeah, to me, like if there is a form of tangible like input counterplay, like, you know, I mean, ideally for me, mechanical counterplay, but game sense works as well for like a hag, or I mean, no one likes playing as hag, but like if there's something that you can do, you know, to counter them or think I was the one that came up and, you know, I came out on top here because I made this decision, like that always feels rewarding.
Yeah. So with the frustrations of playing against killers, not for you specifically, but against the Blight, what would you say is the most frustrating thing for survivors? Would you just say it's like the zoning, brutal, not really interactive gameplay for that exact same reason?
Yeah, more than likely, just because again, that is the easiest way to play him. You can kind of like you can subsidize and ignore most of his skill expression by just forcing the power down. I think it doesn't help as well that like Blight does just synergize so well with every good perk in the game. You know, DMS is incredible, Pain Res is incredible, Brim is incredible, Pop is incredible, right? All of these perks work so well on the Blight, and it means that not only are you going against like a very oppressive killer that has the capability of playing him in a very uninteresting, very easy way, but he's also probably running a very strong build because it's so easy to run these things. So I think that can always be a little bit frustrating. At the same time, though, like being realistic, DBD is a game. Games are inherently competitive, and you can't expect someone to not run strong stuff, you know, on either side.
Yeah, exactly. I still get annoyed if I see a styptic in my face, but what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, when it's the first chase, man, it's like, bro.
But on the topic of frustrations and, you know, survivors in general, the big hot button issue, just because it came up so naturally for us, going next, you know, the Go Next Epidemic type deal. You do play one of the strongest killers in the game. How often are you really having people go next against you? Maybe specifically your Blight or just the Blight in general? And what are your general thoughts on the Go Next Epidemic? I know the behavior said they were doing something about it soon, TM, but as of this recording, that's not out yet. So going next.
Yeah, so yeah, pretty big one. In fact, it depends on when you, the viewer, are watching this video, but I did also just release a video on that. It's a problem. I see it extremely frequently. Sometimes it depends on the day. It's very strange. Like sometimes some weeks it will be way worse than others. Sometimes I won't get anything. But I would say on average in like a 6-hour stream, for example, there's probably 4 or 5 games of going next. It's quite a lot. And typically this is before they've even seen that I'm running no perks. You know, they won't see like I'm not tunneling, I'm not camping, I'm not slugging. They'll just see that I'm a Blight and be like, yep, sorry, going next. As far as like my opinions on it, I mean, like the one thing that has to change is they have to get rid of the Kobe function. I think it is ancient and there is no benefit to it being in the game. I don't know what behavior's plans are with it. I would hope that there's something substantial. But yeah, it's funny because like people often talk about like, you know, like, well, this thing is going to kill the game, or this is going to be the end of DBD. And almost every time I disagree. You know, I don't think that there are many things that could realistically kill the game. But I think what people fail to remember is that like, you know, Blight is a character in the game. So is Nurse, so is Spirit. You know, someone gets home from work, just worked like a really long shift or something. They just want to enjoy some casual gameplay and they load in as their favorite character. You know, they're not playing Blight necessarily because he's the strongest. They just thought he was cool and wanted to play him, right? In this hypothetical example.
Yeah, because like the average player is not someone on Twitter making content for a character, looking up content. Like they open the game, they play the game, that's the end of it, you know?
Exactly, right? Like 90% of the players, probably way higher, probably don't even own all the characters. They've never watched they've never watched a Scott Jund 12-hour video on why this is a problem or whatever, which I personally do every time, but I'm also a massive nerd. So like the problem is that like this person gets home from like a long day at work and they just want to relax and play 2 hours. You know, that's all they've got before they got to go and pick up the kids or something. They just want to play 2 hours of the game. And if they play the game and they load in and someone gives up and they're like, okay, well, this game's wasted. They load in, play, and then second game, player gives up, which is quite common. Why would they continue playing? Like if they cannot play the game if it's not worth the investment of their free time, then they'll just find something else to play.
Exactly.
And I believe that it's a genuine concern for the health of the game, and it's hard to say exactly what it boils down to, whether it's like partly entitlement, partly like valid issues with seeing killers too many times, partly with like getting burnt out. But yeah, it's the whole Going Next epidemic is like it is truly an epidemic, and it seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, I not yesterday, but the day before. So my first day of Dead by Daylight this week, because I stream Tuesday to Friday, hashtag self promo. But if you were not here, or you're here like 10 years later, this was a Tuesday in April of 2025, and they just brought back Chaos Shuffle, and for some reason the MMR is just reset in both modes. And I am not kidding you when I say that, like you just said in your 6-hour stream, you get like maybe 3 or 4 Go Next, right? In my 6-hour stream, legitimately more than half of my games I could not play to finish, like because of my results, just because somebody gave up first hook. And like my very last game of the evening, I hit a Red Riding Hood Sable, I remember this very well, and she just started waving at me because she didn't want to play. I didn't even injure her. I contaminated her. 3-hit killer, by the way. And she just gave up, and I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm not doing that. And then I left her on the ground because I'm petty.
Yeah, it sucks. And it's funny because I feel like around the same time, I had the same. It was when I got the game from the most recent video where I went to every extent that I possibly can. And again, I try to the best of my ability. I know that people look at how I play and they see how quickly I get downs and everything. And I understand that aspect of it. But I don't go into the game, to tunnel. I don't go and camp. I don't slug. Generally speaking, unless there's a map offering or they're doing weird stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I'm there to have fun. That's the point of a game.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm also running like often no perks or just barbecue and lethal. And it was around the same time I think as your one. And first game, immediate give up. Meg came to me. It was a Cold Tower I think, and they just walked up to me. First one DC'd, second one gave up on hook. That game was lost. Second game, I was like, okay, I'm going to take off my perks this time. I was running only Alkrang. Went to Irie of all maps, and the first survivor looked like they were giving up. They took their attempts and then they started playing again. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to play one-handed for this game. I'm going to rebind W and spacebar to my M4. I'm going to play one-handed, right? And then they gave up. And I was like, what am I? So someone in chat was like, oh, play with your left hand. I was like, okay. So I played the next game with no perks with my left hand only. And they gave up. So I was like, what am I supposed to do? I was going insane. I was like, right. what is the plan?
Pull out the foot. It's foot gaming time.
Tier 3 subs only, of course. Twitch.tv/Horceror. Yeah, of course. But like, no. And then, so the only way that I could play a game is I'm not sure if you saw the video. It was the wildest game ever.
I haven't yet. It's on my to-watch list.
So no perks. No add-ons. I brought a Badham preschool offering, and I was AFK for a minute at the beginning of the game, and that was the only game in about 3 hours that they didn't give up. They turned out to be Chads, in fairness, but
that's crazy.
And no one should have to like, I understand that like I have 10,000 hours in this game. I play a lot of Blight, but like it's also worth remembering when people say like, oh, but like you're this, you're that, you're just like crazy strong with this character. I am not the average Blight. I'm not the average DB player. Like you are not playing against me every single match. Like some people are convinced themselves they are. Like you are playing against DBD MMR, which is not that great. Yep. This person might have, like 100 hours on the character that you're talking about, and again, people say this to me and they're like, oh, but like, you're playing Blights, Blight is the problem. I've legitimately played Perkless, Addonless Freddy and had people give up on first hook. And it begs the question, like, what killer are people actually looking to face? Because I can't think of one. And this is like pre-buff Freddy. Like, I understand that people don't like Trapper, but like we're talking Myers, people have given up against before when I played it. People have given up against like Pig before. At what point do you have to take a step back and think like, am I actually enjoying the game anymore? Or am I just playing it because I've sunk too much time and money into it that I can't justify leaving it? For like a week or a break.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit of a meme, but he's never going to live it down. But the Matthew Cote thing of like, have you guys tried Civ 5? Good time. Yeah. Like, I don't think anyone should just play one game. Like, there are literally hundreds of thousands out there. You will find something that you do not want to load up just to quit.
Yep.
And like, of course it can still be, I'm not saying you specifically, but it also could be on the killer sometimes, like I know a lot of like win streak content type deal. I did a win streak. I mean, I did like a really casual win streak, but I did one, but like win streaks and stuff. So like, how do you feel about win streaking on your killer? And I know that you're not the Blight win streak guy. I talked to Momo for Oni and we brought it up briefly, but do you feel like compared to other killers, Blight's an easy win streaker? Do you enjoy win streaking? And if Yes. Why?
These are fantastic questions. I've got to give props to whoever came up with these.
Me.
Yeah, so when it comes to win streaks, I always feel really divided, especially when it comes to Blight and Nurse. I mean, I do a lot of weird win streaks. I did recently 50 wins of no breaking pallets. I've done 50 wins of no perks, no add-ons. I've done, if there's a style of win streak, I've probably done it at some point in the past.
Okay.
When it comes to Blight, I think, a Nurse and those kind of S tier killers, it really depends on what you're doing. People enjoy the content, right? And I'm always happy to to show people what they want. People want that high level Blight gameplay. People want that locked in, like showing people how serious I can play Blight.
Yep.
And I'm more than happy to do that. It's fun in that like I'm just playing the game, I'm streaming, I'm having fun with it. But like, does it really mean anything? Not really, right? I think like past a certain extent of a killer being strong, the average team that you're playing against, like we were saying with the killer side, is like they're very casual. On average, I'd imagine that like you're looking at like maybe a duo per lobby at most. Maybe they just got home from work or school or something, just want to play a few games. Like they are not prepared to go like full Team Eternal scrim against you on Fracture Cowshed, right? Or
Yeah,
Suffolk or something.
Exactly. You're not playing against Nightlight. You're playing against Anarchist Toad 362. Like
yeah. Who just recently downloaded on the Switch or something.
I love gaming on my Switch because it's portable, and I love Ashley J. Williams. That's my favorite movie. I'm gonna go play Lilith Omen.
Yeah, Grim Painres DMS Tunnel to 5 gens. Like it's fun. I think it's people enjoy the content. I think it's fine. I don't think it's problematic as such. Maybe, but like I don't know, it's just like it really depends on what you're doing it for. To me, like I was saying before, I like the challenge of things, hence why I do like a lot of like weird gameplay. A lot of the times if I'm streaking with like a stronger build, it's because chat specifically wanted something and they just they enjoy a certain type of content. But I think going out to prove something with like a high tier killer it's not really proving much, and I think most high hour players know that. I think more than anything, I mean specifically with Momo's streak, because it's always going to be the one that gets brought up, I think the most impressive thing to me there, it's just like the mental fortitude to sit there and play the game for that many games in a row, I think is easily the most impressive thing. Like almost 2,000 wins, right? Like it's not even the wins that's impressive to me, although he is a very good Blight. Like, don't get me wrong. It's the fact that he sat there for almost 2,000 games, like locked in to this win streak. Like having the mental to do that is pretty impressive.
Yeah, Super Elf actually said something similar along those lines. Not about Momo specifically, but just about like a streak in general lasting a really long time, where it's like it's kind of like your friend like comes over to stay at your house for a bit. You're like, okay, maybe after a day, a week, you're like, okay, that's pretty cool. I like seeing my friend. But after a month, it's like, bro, you got to go home. And then like it keeps going for months and months and months. It's like, dude, go home. Like I'm tired of this. So like definitely the mental fortitude thing. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I mean the whole like comparison to like a friend staying over and like wanting them to go home is really interesting. It's really funny because yeah, it does like. In fact, it was a question I asked my Twitch chat relatively recently. Is like at what number does the streak get less impressive? Like for a video, for example, right? Let's say it doesn't matter who the win streak's on, your Blight Nurse, Nemesis, Trapper, right? But like 50 is like has always kind of been like the kind of the cornerstone, the odd starver streak, right?
Yeah.
100 is like, damn, that's high. 500 is like, oh my god, this is god level. But after 500, like, is 1,000 really that much more than 500? Like, and then 2,000 versus 1,000, 5,000 versus 2,000. Like, it starts to get to a point where you're like, okay, well, we were aware that you're not going to lose this. Like this, if you were going to lose this, if there was like even a small chance that you could lose a game, it would have happened by now.
And Momo kind of said the same thing, where it's like if he played the team that beat him every game, he would have been lucky to make it to 50. So back on the Anarchist Toad 362 thing, it's definitely like a matchmaking type deal. Maybe we should get a ranked mode. Who knows?
Oh, I've got some thoughts on rank mode, but I'm sure that's a question.
It wasn't, but you can go for it right here. Go for it.
Okay, very, very quickly, because this was not a question. I don't see any possible timeline where a ranked mode actually makes sense. And the problem is that, like, in an ideal world, like, yes, that it would be cool to have the two split. But like, let's say hypothetically there is a casual and a ranked mode. The only way for it to work is for the casual one to be somehow heavily restricted to, not allow tunneling, camping, slugging, to restrict a whole ton of perk combos, to maybe restrict map offerings. And at that point, you're playing a very watered down experience of what DBD is. And the reason why that's necessary is because I can guarantee you this happens a lot with, like, it's worth mentioning as well, just as a clarification, like most of this talk I've been mentioning like survivors, doing these things as problems. I'm entirely aware that killers are also a problem. Killers can also be majorly entitled. They can also go next, right? Like both sides have their issues. It's just that as a killer main, I see more survivors, right?
Yeah, just numerically, that's how it works.
Yeah, but like, so the problem with the ranked mode is that like people in this game and in games in general always want to go the path of lowest resistance. They want to get their win without having to put too much effort in. And this isn't everyone, but this is a high portion of the player base, sadly. And this goes for any game, right? If people can get a win and feel like they've succeeded without having to like sweat every game, like how often does it happen where like they adjust them MMR slightly and every game is super sweaty and people go straight to Twitter to complain? Like, this game is so brutal. It's the same build, same add-ons, same perks, same maps. I hate this game. Like, within seconds, it's going to be posted there. And the problem is, like, the casual mode is still going to be full of people that are sweating but just want easy games, right? Like, most people don't want to go into a ranked mode and sweat like it's a scrim every single time. And so how do you balance that, right? The only way to do it is to make the casual mode have massive restrictions. And then it's like, oh, well, now I'm just playing, like, DBD alpha. I'm just playing like the little like mini fun mode, right? This isn't serious DBD. This is now like the little like gimmick mode. Or I can play the ranked one, and now I have to sweat every single time. Like, I just don't see how they'd make it work.
Yeah, so a little less fun if you do, and the queue times obviously from splitting the queue again.
Yeah.
So wouldn't be great. No, I kind of don't have a segue for this one, so I'm just gonna ask, like, what is some general advice you'd give to new players that are starting Blight for the first time? Just like, not like a 5-paragraph essay or anything, just general advice, baby's first Blight.
So I think the first thing to remember is that Blight is ranked as very hard in the game for a reason. Mostly because he requires a few things that might come naturally to players that have played a while and played other characters, but he does require a fair amount of game sense and map understanding and distance and stuff like that. So go into it thinking and remembering this is a complicated character. No one has ever done anything complicated and succeeded first try. If you've ever tried to like learn, like C++ or something, right? You're gonna make mistakes, but you learn from those mistakes. And I think a lot of people go into playing Blight and they fail the flicks, they fail the bump logic, and they really they take to heart. And they're like, I'm bad, this character's impossible, why can't I do this? Like, each game should be a learning experience. Go in, and if you see a survivor that's playing very well or doing something that you can't learn yet, or you haven't learned to counter yet, that's great, because now that gives you an insight into what you can improve on, what you can work on. Like, they're playing cow tree. It's like, okay, this tile is weird. How can I learn to play this one? You can either go online and find footage of people doing so, or you can go into like a custom game with a friend or something, or you can just sit there in a public game, and the next time you load into Coldwind, think, oh, this is that tile. I can try a couple different things here. Just always remember that like complications are really, with Blight or with any aspect of life, complicated things are there to be overcome. They're there to be learned. And when there are things that are difficult, you kind of appreciate that, and you try to find ways of making that work for you. Go in, have fun, run things like barbecue. I think is very important, because it means that you can load and you can find a survivor, and then you can then hook down, or down hook, probably in that order, otherwise you're hacking. And then you find the next one, and then start another chase, and then continue that. I think besides, like, if you want to like hear very specific advice for tile play and bump logic, stuff like that, you can head to my channel. Just generally speaking, if you see a tile and you don't know how to play it, like, that's a good thing, because now you can practice, you can see what works, see what doesn't work, see how survivors are doing things that you don't understand yet, and all of those things will make you into a good Blight player. No one has ever sat there, loaded up as Blight, and said, wow, this is really easy. I can 4K every game against Team Eternal. Like, this character is a piece of cake. Like, there's always more to learn.
Yeah, just some common misconceptions about the Blight. Like, he's gonna be easy just because, Lilith makes him look easy. So is there anything else specifically about Blight that people don't understand, or is that like the big misconception about him?
One kind of specific one, and I'm hoping that at least one person listening to this will appreciate this info. The biggest misconception with Blight is how the flick works. And this seems to be especially prevalent for controller players who come in all the time and they'll tell me that like Blight sucks on controller, he can't flick, blah, blah, blah. The reality is that Blight is shockingly similar on controller versus keyboard or mouse. There's not very much difference at all. I think people will often see someone like me or Momo or any of these higher players make things look easy and then presume that it is. So what I'm referencing here is flicking. So two small things, I guess, the shoulder flick and the look angle. One of the most common problems that people have is that they're rushing a survivor completely in the open, should be a free hit. They swing at them and the survivor like wiggles a little bit and they dodge enough to swing, and now you've missed, and it's like, what happened? They were right there, I swung. You've always got to treat it like you are running coup de grace. You have a stack and you don't want to lose it, right? Or you're running tier 1 Myers. Imagine that you do not have a lunge and you're waiting until you are touching the survivor's hitbox, like physically almost going through the survivor to press the button. Because right at the very beginning of your swing, you have a massive hitbox, which is effectively undodgeable. The only thing that can really make a difference there is verticality, if they're like significantly higher or lower. Outside of that, you will never miss. So just like always remember that you should be touching the survivor before you swing at them. And secondarily, when it comes to flicks, very quickly, because this is the other big one, especially for controller players, is you will always start your flick in the direction you were facing. And like I kind of alluded to earlier, Blight's got this very unique function called the look angle, which means that kind of like a drifting car, I can travel in one direction while facing another one. And so if I'm running towards, like, let's say an Azerov's truck, a classic thing I want to flick around, when I get to the end of that and I decide I want to flick, I turn my head in that angle, then I click the button, and it will immediately snap me around to facing that sharp angle to get that flick. No one has ever clicked the button and then decided to flick. It always happens beforehand. If you look at any like good Blight player, you put their flicks in slow-mo, you will always see that they turn the head and then click the button.
All right. And with all this look angling, hug teching, moon rushing, we talked about that earlier, all the, Blight techs that are, known about, are there any secret hidden techs that you want to talk about, or even just ones that exist besides the look angle thing that you want to bring up for the class to learn?
There is a tech that I will not discuss that's been in the game for a while.
What is it? Because I don't play Blight. You don't have to tell me how to do it. I'm curious.
This is a pretty elusive one. It is, in fairness, most players can't do it. It is ping reliant, and it has still not been patched out for some bizarre reason. As far as like things in the game currently, the biggest one to me, the biggest tech on Blight is again the look angle. What happens with it is, let's say I'm moving forward, right? Imagine that there's like a character or a car or something moving forward,
okay,
and then
I'm holding W.
90 degrees. Yeah, holding W, and then you look 90 degrees to the left. You are still going to continue traveling forward for a short period, about half a second, and then eventually, after that period's up, you will then start traveling in the direction you are facing. But for that short period, you are going sideways. And what that means is that you can actually get to locations using one rush that would normally require two. Let's say you wanted to like curve the side of a building and hit a tree that would otherwise be inaccessible. What you'd do is you'd get close to the edge of it, then turn your head, and you would continue going forward, and then you would, over time, turn and go into that tree that is kind of behind a wall. To be honest, I think this is like the least utilized part of Blight's kit, which is kind of sad because to me it's my favorite part. And it's a relatively complex thing to get down. The muscle memory and the timing for it is relatively specific. But if you're looking to like really, kind of elevate your Blight gameplay, I think that is the number one thing to practice.
Aside from, the obvious.
Oh yeah, I mean, aside from literally everything else.
Yeah, it's secret. Shh. That's why you gotta learn it, because it's cool. But while we're talking about other secret things that, other players might not know, are there any, you even said this was a bug, are there any big notable Blight bugs right now that are going on that are maybe less known to non-Blight players? And are there any big Blight bugs that people do know about?
Shockingly, behavior's been really good at patching out most of them.
All right, nice.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed. Annoyingly, and I'm hoping by the time, I'm not sure what the upload schedule is for this, but hopefully it's been patched.
Done.
Fuck. Hopefully it's been patched at some point soon. The low pro bug is back, and I try not to talk about these things. I try not to like show them or and make them super public, not because I want to gatekeep them, but because I think they're dumb and they take down the skill ceiling of the character. Yeah, there's a bug that was reintroduced with they modified some palette breaking stuff to fix another bug. And in classic, behavior fashion, they introduced a way worse bug that kind of lets you get stunned and then continue a rush, like low pro kind of thing. So you stun a Blight and then he can hit you anyway, which thankfully is not very good for the retag, which is good because that add-on is very strong anyway. That bug, I would hope that most people don't know much about, or at least aren't able to utilize it very well. But that one, it's not like a massive game-breaking, it's not like a kill switch style bug, but it does allow Blight to do things that he should not be doing and get hits after getting stunned.
It's like a side-eye type thing, like that shouldn't happen.
Yeah, that it shouldn't be happening. And again, like to me, like I'm probably biased here, you know, but I like things that are skill expressive. You know, I'm
Hmm.
not a big fan of things that make characters easier, especially bugs. So yeah, that would be the main one.
And that happened in an update. So in general, how have updates for Blight been as well? That could be like buffs, nerfs, bugs, unbugs, just overall the course of his lifetime. How have updates treated Talbot Grimes?
They've treated him shockingly well to the point where I think that like somewhat of behavior or the entirety of behavior, I don't know, he's got to be the favorite child, right? Like he went 3 years with the Alcrane, you know, like he went 3 years with the hug tech. Like I'm not sure if it was because it was a pain to figure out like how to fix or something, but like
Probably.
Blight just it stayed so strong for so long, and then it seemingly every time they try to do something to nerf him, it actually just buffs him. Like when they patched out the hug tech, I made a video on this like 3 years ago, so telling people that like if they were to remove the hug tech, it would buff Blight, and everyone like there were streamers reacting to it, and everyone was saying no, Lilith, you're wrong, and then as per usual, oh wait, hold on, he's stronger now because the collision actually functions and you can just do everything properly. As far as like the add-on change was healthy, I like that one. The 40-meter radius buff, I understand why it's a thing, but it is a buff because it means that you now have 52 meters of infectious and chorophobia with distressing, which is busted. It also means that like less experienced survivors will hit the radius and then panic and then get off gens, which is a passive buff as well. I would say that overall the direction that they've taken Blight, he's less like flashy and ridiculous now, but he's just a lot more consistent. And to me, I think that's a good direction to go. I would rather character be, you know, as designed, but in like a very malleable, very like approachable way where it's like, okay, that tree has collision. I'm running at the tree. It makes sense why I bounce on it. Because for years, it wasn't like that. If you remember when Blight first released, his POV was like in the floor, basically.
He was short, yeah.
He was so short. And a lot of people didn't like playing him back then. They made him taller, but the problem with that is it comes with the caveat of the collision hitboxes are eye level, so now everything is now slippery because he cannot see the thing he's bumping into most of the time. That has now been fixed, so the collision is super consistent, which has made him harder to play. It's made him harder to master. I love that aspect of him. You know, I love the fact that like if you see some bump logic, some objects, and you have like a plan in mind, you know that it's going to work this time. You know that that tree is definitely bumpable. You know that that carb, that tire pile, that bush in the corner of the map, except for Toba, but that's a different discussion, is that is bumpable, and like that's cool because it's tangible mechanical input that you can decide to do.
It's consistent, it's reactable, and it's fairer, I would say.
Yes, exactly.
And on the other half of the updates, well, I guess it's more than half because Blight's not that big of a part of the DBD, sorry. But like, and as far as literally everything else that they've changed since Blight's come out, like how have perk changes, map changes, reworks, anything at all besides direct hits to the Blight, how have they treated him? How has the game changed around him?
I mean, I mean, again, it's similar to the last answer where like he just seems like the favorite child, and that like it might just be that Blight's so universal that he just kind of works with everything. He's just like well designed in that way, or badly depending on how much you hate him. Yeah, if you got a wall, then you're fine. Windows, no go, but walls are great. Yeah, I mean, perks, all of the changes have been good, arguably sometimes too good, because I feel like Blight and nerfs were kind of the reason why things like, you know, Predator got nerfed. Things like the Zanchin change, also good. Things like the Knockout change, also good. Like, Blight just, he benefits from pretty much every perk in the game in some way that's normally better than most other killers. I'm trying to think map-wise, there isn't really anything that stands out that has become worse. I think most of them have in some way become better, especially after the hug tech change. I think like it was around the time that Wesker released, the Shelterwoods became like very, very slippery. And I've got some thoughts. I feel like they may have changed like the tree collision to make it more forgiving because Wesker, he'd get stuck on it quite a lot. I don't think there's any single change, map or general gameplay or anything that has been like a catastrophic mess for Blight. I think he's been able to like kind of overcome and deal with pretty much everything.
He is like, you know, kind of good in every situation type of deal. So there's not really like they made this barrel where if you bump it on a collision killer, you explode.
Yeah, I mean, there's been like a couple spots, like the one, oh man, okay, so like I'm saying that all the collision works now. 99.99% of it does work, except that Swamp. You know the hills that spawn on Swamp.
Oh, I know the hills that spawn on Swamp.
Yeah, those. You know how a Swamp always has that one fucking tree stump that spawns slightly to the left of the top of the hill. This might be a Blight thing because I just think about collision.
This might be a Blight thing, but go on.
Well, that tree still has no collision, and I I don't know how it's possible. Like that tree has never had collision since day one, since September 8th. when Blight released, that tree has never been bumpable, and I don't get it. Like, it is the weirdest shit.
So, am I gonna be expecting to see a Lilith Omen? This single tree is my worst enemy in Dead by Daylight. Will that be a video soon?
Oh yeah. If I could take a tree to court, it would be that tree. Like, we've got a problem.
I can't wait to see it. That sounds fun. So, going to court. They're on trial. The trials, Dead by Daylight. Killers are in Dead by Daylight. Killers have cosmetics in Dead by Daylight. How do you feel about the Blight's cosmetics? Do you think
an
that
unbelievable segue?
Thank
oh
you.
my god.
Do you think that he has enough? Do you think he doesn't have enough? Is there a specific option that you, if given full executive control, would make for a skin? And what is your current favorite set to wear?
I've got to say, this is the greatest interview I've ever been part of. This is amazing.
And that segue was fire, I know.
That was so clean. I don't know how you did that. Just like off the bat.
I had to think about it.
As far as cosmetics go, I'm kind of surprised with how, like, considering that he is, I think, the most popular character in the game, effectively, especially a high MMR, I think he is the most popular character. I'm surprised at how little cosmetics he's had. Or at the very least, it seems like he should have had a few more. And I think part of my problem with that is that a lot of the recent ones have been, they've not been good. Okay, like, I'm gonna give them credit. I still dig them because they're Blight, and Blight is cool, and I like him. But they've not been great. And not to mention the fact that many of them are linked, right? I think more than any other killer in the game, he has just been receiving link after link, right? The cat one, linked. The aquatic anomaly, which is the tentacle, the fish Blight, the sushi Blight. Linked. Birkin, which admittedly I adore Birkin.
I get why that
Birkin
one's linked though. That one makes sense.
That one makes sense. It's a shame because the pipe sound, it's the best sound in DVD. It's so good. Just bow on everything.
Just clunk them, yeah.
Well, it's also the downside to Birkin is that, like, it doesn't make that sound
up in the lobby. Oh.
In the head. Well, the lobby thing. I mean, he's trying his best though. You know, he's kind of mad. You know, he has reason to be mad. I justify it. It's just that, like, yeah, that one's linked. Ferryman is linked as well. Not to mention that, like, the most recent Rift skin, I think, is an actual scam on the basis that as killer, you know, when you're playing Survivor, you are playing in third person. So every aspect, every facet of your skin, of your cosmetic, you can witness. And you can be like, that was worth my investment. That's cool. Now, am I the kind of person to buy an entire Rift because Blight's in it? Yes. That's not the point, though. I bought that Deep Rift skin on day one, and it literally makes no difference in-game. As killer, you are in first person. The only things you can see are your weapon, your hands, and your arms. That's it. The weapon's a different color, but the hands and the arms are identical to the non-Deep Rift version. They are the same skin. It's the body piece and the legs that change. And so when you are playing and you decide which one to go for, there is never any reason to choose the Deep Rift over the regular one, or vice versa, right? Stuff like that on top of the link sets and everything, they kind of frustrate me. Plus, I'm not the biggest fan of the recent ones. Like the Scottish, like, kilt one is cool, but it's not amazing. The aquatic one is cool, but it's not amazing. As far as ones that I'm hoping to see, like, if I was given free reign, and I know this is never going to happen. If this does happen, I'm coming back to this video and I'm commenting, and I will eat a shoe, right? But
I will timestamp it just in case.
Please do. I want to be held accountable for this one. Deadly Premonition is my favorite game of all time. It's the weirdest game. Anyone in the comments that has played this game, please, to tell me someone else knows this game, please. It has this killer called the Raincoat Killer, and he works so well over Blight. Like, as you can see by the fantastically implemented clip by Horceror on screen right now, isn't this the coolest thing you've ever seen? It's amazing, right? That's what I would pick. And also, admittedly, this is kind of relevant to, like, the next chapter, you know, FNAF and everything. I'm not, like, a huge FNAF fan. I really enjoyed the first 3 games. It's kind of all I played, though. But a Foxy skin for Blight would be really cool.
I saw that exact tweet. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it would be really cool. You know, custom animations, custom sound effects, maybe a custom Mori. Blight deserves a visceral, just saying. But yeah, if I could pick any, Foxy for the relevance and Raincoat Killer for just personal, although will never happen, aspects.
All right, cool. That's great. I mean, it's nice that you have specifics that you would like to see. I got my dream skin, so I don't know what to do now because I have it. So hope that happens for you, for real.
I'm presuming you mean the classic Nemesis, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. There was nothing edited here. So, like, okay, question though. Like, so a lot of people at the time, the leaks were saying Mr. X was going to be the skin, right?
That was
Like
I have had a tangent on that. I'm air quoting aggressively. Leak for so because the whole point of the tyrants is that Mr. X is like a fucking jobber tyrant, right? And then the Nemesis is like a tyrant with the Nemesis, the any alpha parasite put in. So like the because like the whip is Nemesis. Like Nemesis is the parasite, you know, like the dead body, that's not Nemesis. Like you have to break his like fucking parasite. Like the tentacle is the Nemesis. It would make no sense to give him the tentacle because then he's not Mr. X, he's Nemesis because he has the tentacle. And then it's just like if you made a visceral and he did like the like claw thing and he did like it kind of looked like pyramid heady coming out of the floor, like maybe you could spin it, but like just as give him the tentacle every time it's like it's legitimately up there with like, oh, we should give Nemesis a rocket launcher. I'm going to throttle you. Like, shut up. Shut up. I'm so tired of hearing this. No. Would it have been cool when he came out? Sure. Is it going to happen? Fuck no. Sorry, what was your question?
I don't know. So that pretty much answered it. Although I do have one more follow-up to do with Birkin.
Oh,
so,
yeah, for sure.
When you look at Birkin in like the Resident Evil 2 remake, I guess is the most like relevant, up-to-date version of Birkin.
Yep.
He obviously doesn't dash and bump into shit, you know, stuff like that, right? He's not Blight.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like Birkin is a close enough fit that like it doesn't really bother you, or is it like does it kind of bum you out that like he theoretically could have been his own killer?
I don't really feel like the issue with Blight is that he's so fast, and then Resident Evil isn't really on that type of speed level thing, that there's not really characters in the verse that would like fit it. So I would say Birkin was a pretty good I mean, if we didn't have the Nemesis, he is canonically like the DVD Nemesis and the like actual Resident Evil Nemesis power scaling is like crazy different. Like Nemesis like runs you down at like twice the Blight speed and then haymakers you, you know, like the tentacle isn't even there. Like he would have been a cool skin for Blight if we didn't, you know, get him as the killer. And like there's a whole discussion about like DVD Nemesis versus Resident Evil Nemesis and like how it doesn't really fit the fantasy, and that's kind of tying into me complaining earlier. But it's like there's not really a one-to-one, yeah, that would be the Blight type deal. Like if you did RE8, like Lady Dimitrescu, you could make that a skin for the night, you know, 3 daughters, big woman, boom, like ding 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 ding, like that would make sense, kind of air quote sense. But there's not like a something I'm thinking of right now that'd be like, oh yeah, that would be the Blight, obviously, unless you made him like a zombie dog for speed, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, like the one other character that I would be a dream one for me. I know it's like a very like, I mean, I was going to say like a background character, but to me, he's one of my favorite characters in Resident Evil. Is Dr. Salvador from RE4. Like he would make a lot of sense to put over Bubba, right? Because people suggested having like a legendary skin for Billy, but he doesn't charge; he sweeps.
So that would be a visceral skin for Bubba, but they can't really do the license mixing thing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it probably would have to be Billy just for that, but then it would be another Nemesis situation where they don't like really fit, but it's still like cool, I guess.
Yeah, it's the same as like Jack Baker. Like you could put Jack with his chainsaw thing over Billy, but again, he doesn't dash. You know, he's not sprinting at people. He's a lot more like foreboding, and he's this big kind of like boss character.
Exactly, yeah. 100%. I get that. So I do have my one last question about the Blight here before I get into more like open Dead by Daylight-y questions. Do you think that maining a Blight specifically has given you transferable gameplay skills to other killers or even other games if you have some crack connection there? Like, do you think that you've gotten like a lot of knowledge from playing the Blight specifically that makes you better at other games?
It's very presumptuous to assume that that my life consists of anything other than DVD at this point.
No Civ 5?
I mean, sometimes, you know, if I'm raging, if I'm molding at the game and I'm so mad, then I'll take a break. I like to take M. Kote's advice as best as possible.
Of course.
As far as like transferable skills, it's interesting because I feel like playing Blight has made me much better at playing Billy and Oni, but at the same time, I don't know if playing Billy or Oni would make you better at Blight, which is interesting. Blight's flick is very unique with the whole look angle thing that we discussed earlier, but like the feel of the flick is somewhat similar, just a little bit more delayed than Billy and Oni, whereas Billy and Oni are like a lot more, the way that I normally describe it is that Blight's flick is mostly before you press the button to swing. Oni and Billy are after the fact. You know, you start curving after you've kind of like released the chainsaw. And with Oni, it's after you've kind of like you've turned, you've pressed the button, you've committed to that flick now. I do think that like the game sense of playing Blight so much has also helped me me learn a lot of other killers. I feel like Nurse is the obvious one. Of just being able to like profile survivors and figure out like where they are behind walls when I'm not able to see them. Similar with like Spirits, I guess, to some extent, because you know you break LOS a lot with her as well. Just like being able to move around the map so easily in a weird way has made me better at being able to like to logically establish what is happening in the map, even if I can't be there. You know, if I'm playing Trapper and I'm thinking, okay, like I hooked this guy, normally I'd be going to that survivor and chasing that guy, but they're on the other side of the map. But I at least know roughly what they'd be doing. You know, are they injured? Are they going to be healing? How many people are going to be on gens? What side of the map should I be pressuring here? Those are all things that I think have been benefits from playing Blight and then transferring to other killers. As far as playing other games, kind of. I mean, I don't play a whole ton of like PvP multiplayer stuff. Most of the stuff I play is like single player, like indie horror games and such like that. But something that I think has helped me a lot is with Blight, one of the biggest, I guess, like skill gaps with him is how quickly and how accurately you can turn after bumping into something to face the object or the survivor. And so when I'm playing like, let's say I downloaded Warzone, and something I realized that I was very good at because I play Blight is that I can like super accurately turn 180 degrees to shoot someone in like a quarter of a frame, you know, like ultra quickly. And so in that way, I think just the accuracy of like camera control is definitely something that I've kind of been able to take away from Blight. Besides that, I wouldn't say there's a whole ton because Blight is very unique. I don't think there's any other character in any other game that controls quite like Blight.
Lightning in a bottle type deal. Absolutely. And on the topic of lightning in a bottle with Dead by Daylight itself, how long do you think Dead by Daylight is going to last?
You know, it's funny. It was a conversation earlier on stream that I brought up. Like, if you were to go back to like 2017 DVD and think that we're going to make it to the 10th anniversary, people would call you insane. They'd say there's no way this is going to make it to 10 years. But it has done, and the game shows no real sign of slowing down, right? Not to mention the fact that, like, as far as I'm concerned, FNAF is probably the most relevant in pop culture license that you could possibly get. Like, it's
absolutely. Like,
popular.
I know that the first Resident Evil one, like, you know, Big Dog on Campus of Horror, like, did bloat DVD to its highest it's ever been, and I think FNAF is gonna top that. And I'm saying that as a Resident Evil fan. Yeah. Like, it's not even gonna be close.
I completely agree. My estimation, I think Resident Evil caps at like 110,000 people on Steam, right? Which is a lot, right?
I'd have to check. I
wouldn't
don't know off the top of my head.
It's 100 and something, but I wouldn't be surprised if FNAF is 200. Genuinely, like, it's going to be huge. And considering that these licenses still exist and the game is showing no sign of, like, people make videos all the time of like the game's dying, blah blah blah, but like it's really not. If anything, it's getting bigger.
I would say like there's the one risk of like DBD's actual DBD killer is going to be like much like the mechanic itself. Killing itself on hook is probably like the biggest issue, like going next type deal. But once, like, you know, behavior's been cooking this year, I'm not gonna sit here and lie. Mm-hmm. I shit on them deservedly when they deserve it, but they've been cooking this year. For the most part, like, once they handle, like, the Go Next Epidemic and get, like, an actual carrot, an actual stick, and then, like, actually punish that type of behavior and it changes, like, I think DBD is going to last, like, forever, basically, because horror is a genre that just keeps making new stuff, and there's always going to be more to pull from. Like, we don't even have the biggest horror icons yet. We don't have Jason, we don't have, like, The Thing, you know, there's probably more. I don't watch a lot of horror, admittedly, but like there's a lot of stuff to pull from. And then like their original chapters are always fantastic. Like we got The Unknown, which was like the most fantastic marketing campaign we've had in DB, and then they fired them, but like I shit on them when they deserve it. Yeah. So this is one of those moments, like, what the fuck?
Valid.
But like that marketing campaign was fantastic, and like going forward, I want to see more of that with their original chapters, like the original Survivor coming out, Arella Rose. Like, she's fantastic, and people love her. And then, you know, like when creativity happens, it happens. It's really nice.
Yeah, I don't see you know, to be honest, the only thing that I can genuinely see killing the game is if at some point the game exists for so long, the behavior just get bored with it, or, you know, management leaves or something and they transfer it onto like another studio that doesn't appreciate it nearly as much. I can see that killing the game, but to be completely honest, I do not see any possible future where behavior themselves in their current form are able to kill off the game. Like, when it comes to the Go Next Epidemic, I'm certain that's something they can handle. When it comes to any, like, you know, problems, and like the game is really not in a bad state right now. You know, it's honestly in a much better place than I feel like it's been in a long time. Overall, it's pretty fun on both sides. And not to mention, to kind of err on your point of like licenses, you know, Tokyo Ghoul is kind of a little bit left field. I'm not an anime fan. I've never watched Tokyo Ghoul. Mostly to clarify for anyone the things I'm against. I love anime as like as a medium. My attention span sucks, and every anime is like 5,000 episodes long. I just can't do it.
I could recommend a couple.
If you can, I'd be so down.
I'm just gonna say it out loud. Mob Psycho 100. It's like 12 episodes a season, 3 seasons. Banger.
Perfect. Okay, making notes. But yeah, like I'm pretty sure that the announcement post of Tokyo Ghoul was like the second highest like liked post in DVD's history. You know, and they're just dropping that randomly as like a paragraph. Like that, no one was expecting it. No one was like, you know, oh, they're totally, you know, they've obviously got to do Tokyo Ghoul. It just kind of came out and they were like, wow, like this is pretty cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Mr. John Ghoul. It's there is so much they can take from. You know, there are always new characters coming out, like you know, Art the Clown, you know, like is like the new one, I guess, in horror. There's the classics they still haven't done. My dream one would be The Thing. There's Jason. There's so many ideas and concepts, and they can bring from anywhere, from books, from TV, from games, from anywhere. It's limitless. I don't like, if the game gets like 100 years old, then maybe they'll run out. But like, but beyond that,
that's when we get folklore.
True. And then people can just, I don't know, that they can draw their own little dude and get him in the game.
This is John. He's my OC is really scary. Okay, my very last question for you here.
Yeah.
My banger, very last one. What would make you drop Blight completely forever?
Oh, you know, I hate this question because there are things they could do to make me. I guess 2 things. If they were to eliminate the look angle aspect of him, I would really struggle to enjoy him, because that is like the finesse part. That's the really interesting part of his power that I really enjoy. And also, if they were to remove the way his flick functions, partly to do with the look angle, if they were to make it so you have to swing in the direction your body is going and not in what direction your head is facing, that would be brutal to recover from. Like, I'm sure I would find a way. I don't know, like, just the idea of that, like, if they was to announce that right now and say like, oh, tomorrow, like, he's got no look angle, you've just got to swing in the direction, you can't like turn and you're rushed, like, that would probably kill the character for me. For the sake of content, I might try and persevere and you know, cry a little bit, but yeah, that would be like my the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I have a very, like, if they took the whip drag away from me, I would become the #1 op overnight. Like, that would be my Joker arc. I'm not even lying. Like, that would be like, okay, man. All right, so it's personal now, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, so like regarding the whip drag, I honestly think, because I mean, Nemesis has had some, I mean, I think it's still in the game, like his animation just being gone, where he just kind of stands there and whips you, right?
Yeah, he has like fixed his animation, make it visible when he's whip dragging, and add-on pass. Like 3 things, he's perfect. Never touch him again.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think like it doesn't even have to be like the whip itself. I think, you know, the initial like attack of it, I think all they've got to do is have some kind of like line that is drawn across the floor. You know,
exactly.
There's like kind of glowing blue.
The blue lingering thing, yeah. I just want it visible on Survivor Side too.
Exactly. Kind of like in like a horizontal way of how Pyramid Heads one works. You know, when you physically see the staggering effect, like that just going sideways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would, besides the whole op thing, right? That you would drop the character if they removed it.
It would be really bad, because that's all he's got, legitimately. Like, as far as skill expression and enjoyment goes. Otherwise, he's just like, why wouldn't you play the Xenomorph at that point? Because like, I'm already a 3-hit killer, and like that sucks. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. Like, but removing the whip drag is like cutting off his arm, you know? But like your good arm, like not your side arm. Like, okay, maybe I can still write. Like, you can't do anything anymore. I mean, you can, because you can one-handed Blight, but like that's not the point. It would not be good.
Totally. Well, I mean, like one like very final point, I guess, is like an extension of that, is that like, as far as, you know, killer design has become a lot more complicated. You know, you had killers like the Trapper, who places a trap. And that's it. You have the Huntress, you throw hatchet. That's it, you know, like, but over time, you know, there's a term for this and it's too warm to think of that one. Yeah. Oh man, hold on. What was the name of that? the name
Power
of that
creep?
term? Power creep. Power creep.
Power creep.
That's power creep. Yeah, things are going to get more complicated, right? Like if you look at like the rundown of how to play Singularity, like how to just get like into power, with like a 7-step program. And I guess like the main point I was going to bring up here is that it's always kind of risky with these new characters, and I guess the limited pool of stuff that you feasibly could make a character in a game do. Because like to me, in many ways, the Ghoul has kind of superseded Wesker in almost every way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like he can vault over pallets better. He can,
which is a
his
bug.
mobility's better. Yeah, but he can't do it, right? The mobility's better. He can cancel midway through. He can use one dash and then cancel. I mean, besides the fact, the sex appeal of Wesker, I guess. Like, what is really bringing you to playing Wesker over Ghoul? Right, similar with like Dracula, where Dracula is just kind of spirit on crack in many ways. You can just kind of appear somewhere. You also have like a ranged attack that goes through objects, so
And
kind
you're
of
not
supersedes
110.
Nemesis. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're also 115, and you have a teleporting ability, and you have a dash attack with a dog. It's like
With
part
the
of
built-in centaurs for speed.
with built-in haste. Yeah, exactly. At what point do you have to like Dracula? I guess is the most direct one. Because Pyramid Head and Nemesis are comparable, but they're very different. In their M2 like attacks.
Yeah, mine goes over things and his goes under them, so very different.
Yeah, but like Dracula's kind of in between, right? Like
Yeah.
it does go over, but it also goes through. And I guess like I was just kind of curious as like a final point to get your thoughts on like the power creep and the power comparisons between killers like Dracula and killers like Nemesis.
I think it's fine because it's like, I'm gonna be honest, like the point of like Nemesis and Dracula and Pyramid Head, like while they are similar in vibe, it's like saying that you don't want to play Legion because Myers is in the game to me. Not as egregious of an example, but it's like they're both guy with knife, And like,
yeah.
So they're all guy with projectile legally. But like Nemesis goes over things and it breaks pallets and it contaminates and it slows them down a little bit. Not like a noticeable amount, but it has a slow. And then Dracula is like goes over things and you can't duck it really, but you can't like maneuver it around side to side. And then Pyramid Heads is like the longest length. You get add-ons that increase it further. It goes through walls, which like even Dracula, like while he can kind of go over some like obstacles, he can't go through a wall, and it's all like their own things. And then he has his own stuff on the side where like with the torment mechanic and et cetera, and like they're different enough that I don't feel like, oh, I lost my entire Nemesis nation because Dracula came out and it's over and no one playing him anymore. Like I don't really care because I play Nemesis because I want to drag the whip and I don't like pallets, and the other two don't. They have to deal with pallets, so I just don't do that.
Entirely fair.
So the power creep thing, like, it's still a thing. It just doesn't really affect me specifically, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's kind of all I have here for questions and all that. So my little end segment, I just hand you the floor. I'm like, hey, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to me about the Blighted Killer. And then you can just be like, here's all my links. Here's where you can find me. Here's what I'm working on, this secret project that's coming up, and you should check it out. And then, yeah.
That project. Well, I guess, thank you for having me. I am Lilith. I am the Blight guy. If you type in Blight on Google, it's probably me. I have links like YouTube and various other socials, like a lot of other DVD creators do, such as Horceror, who you should definitely check out on Twitch right now. Tier 3 sub, personally. Yeah, as far as like stuff that I'm working on, it's a lot of typical, kind of videos. I am working on a new Blight guide. It's going to be like a little movie. It's going to be like an hour long. It's been a lot of work.
Nice.
I also, I did recently get the world's first ever, along with a friend of mine, White Noise, but the world's first ever 8 kills in 2v8 with Guitar Hero controllers on Blight. That was fun. That'll be on YouTube soon.
Okay.
If you're a fan of Blight gameplay, or if you want to learn him, I'm always live. I never sleep. I just play this character, and that's pretty much me.
All right. And now to, everyone watching, listening, hearing, getting beamed this information through some type of link in your brain, I want to say I appreciate you very much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the support. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, noon, morning, evening, night, whatever it might be. And I'll catch you in the next one, whenever that is. Bye.
See you later. Have a good night. Day, morning, nights, all of that good stuff. See ya.